we will open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Este junto se lleva a cabo en inglés, pero contamos con servicio de traducción. Si alguien gusta hacer un comentario público o recibir explicaciones en español, por favor indique su necesidad. We'll now work through the agenda. Board, are there any proposed changes? Board or superintendent, are there any proposed changes or modifications to the agenda?
Yes, President Jackson, I was just going to see if we could, since we had everybody here after the reception for Martin Barron, if we could take a minute and honor Martin with some words and some words from the board as well.
We have to vote on it, right?
So,
Yeah, this is the first time, so.
yes.
Are those in favor of changing the agenda? Oh, you don't like to take a motion?
Oh, I'll use mine.
Yeah.
I'd like to move that we modify the agenda to include remarks from Director Barron.
Second.
All right, it has been moved by Maria and seconded by Mark. Any discussion? No, okay. All in favor of changing the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None. Okay, motion carries.
Excellent, let's do this. And I want to recognize our combined middle school band for being here. Thank you for being here. We're going to have you present in just a moment, so thanks for hanging tight. But tonight we're going to start off by honoring and recognizing Martin Barron, a colleague, a mentor, and a friend. I've had the privilege of knowing Martin for my entire career in the Wenatchee School District, for all 27 years of it. In fact, our connection began my very first year of teaching when I was a long-term substitute teacher for Elm Jensen at Wenatchee High School. Sitting in my world literature class was Martin's oldest daughter, Sarah. And we met at conferences that year. And a few years later, I had the joy of teaching his other daughters, Claire and Sophie, both in Advanced Placement U.S. History. And from the start, Martin and his family have been part of my professional journey. So it means a lot to have been able to work so closely with Martin, but also celebrate him. When Martin joined the school board, I was thrilled. Not only because I knew him to be an incredible individual, but because I knew how deeply dedicated he was to our schools and how much he cared about each and every student. What I didn't realize then was just how exemplary a board member that he would become. Martin has been the kind of leader that every district hopes for. Each year, he made it a priority to volunteer in a new building. He served as a lunch buddy. How many lunch buddies do you have, Martin? 3 lunch buddies, and he's
4 actually.
4. And he would spend time with those lunch buddies, showing them that they matter. He has always been a visible champion of the opportunities our students enjoy here in Wenatchee, never missing a chance to highlight those accomplishments. Martin has gone above and beyond in his service. He chaired a Levy Citizens Committee by himself during the pandemic, helped create and guide our budget committee, which will be part of his legacy for the Wenatchee School District and the school board. And he stayed on the board for an extra 2 years for a number of reasons. One of those, I believe, to help mentor and support an aspiring superintendent, for which I am personally and deeply grateful. He has been a member of our Migrant Corps PAC, who are here in representation tonight, and represented us at the state level on the Migrant Advisory Committee, advocating for some of our most important programs. What stands out most about Martin, though, is his integrity. He asks difficult questions, and not for the sake of being difficult. He asked them because he really wanted to be sure that this school district was responding to the needs of our community in a way that was honest, responsible, and student-centered. He has modeled what it means to lead with both conviction and compassion. And on a personal note, Martin, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your guidance, thank you for your mentoring, thank you for your confidence, and yes, even for a scolding every now and then. And I want to thank you for your unwavering support, your example that you lead with, and most of all, your friendship. It's been the greatest honor to share this table with you. And finally, we have to recognize Martin's wife, Tina, and his family. Tina's here, always here to support. Their sacrifices made it possible for Martin to give so much of himself to the school district. So on behalf of all of us, thank you, Tina and family, for sharing him with us. Martin, as we know, words are never enough to express our gratitude. Please know that your legacy of service, your integrity, and your love for this district will continue to guide us for years to come. So thank you, my friend. And we have this little trinket for you to hang on your wall and words to inspire. So thank you, Corey.
Thank you very, very much. I am going to have some words to say at the end of the meeting, but in the meanwhile, everybody wants to get on to the good part of the meeting. Thank you, middle school, and I'll shut up for now.
Okay, so we're gonna get through, we'll race through the consent agenda and get to our bright spot. The items on the consent agenda were sent to the board and posted online last week. The board has had the opportunity to review the materials and ask the superintendent any questions they have about any items on the consent agenda. The consent agenda for this meeting includes the minutes for the October 28th regular meeting, vouchers and payroll, personnel report, contracts, August financial report, policy updates with non-substantive changes and retired policies, field trips, elementary school improvement plans. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented. It's my final motion. Why not?
I second.
All right, it's been moved by Martin and seconded loudly by Maria. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor of adopting the consent agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? None. Okay, motion carries. Bright spots. Corey, take it away.
Let's do it. Thank you. I am so thrilled to have our combined middle school band. We have select members. You all were in the parade yesterday, is this correct? Yep, excellent. So you're here for us. Extracurricular activities such as band help our students have a robust student experience and are funded predominantly through our 4-year education program and operations levy that our voters supported last February. So we're thrilled to have you all here. And wow, what a great array of amazing. So we have brass, we've got drums, we've got the whole thing. I love it. So we also hope that maybe there are a few students that want to share their experience with the board and the community as well. But we'll let our amazing staff get us started.
Ben, upset, hot. One.
Roll up, 2, 3, 4.
So I'd like to start by having two students present their presentations for us, and then I have a presentation on behalf of the many other voices from Marshall Middle School that could not be here this evening.
Being a part of the Orchard Middle School music program has truly changed my life. From the moment I joined band, jazzband, and choir, I discovered a deep love for music that has become a huge part of who I am and who I always will be. Music isn't just about playing notes or performing, it's about connection, emotion, and growth, and a feeling that I will never be able to put into words. Playing 6 different instruments has taught me so much more than how to make music. It's shown me what it means to work hard for something I care about. Every rehearsal and every performance has helped me become not only a stronger musician, but also a more confident and understanding person. One of the most meaningful parts of the Orchard Music Program is the relationships I've made. Music has a way of bringing people together, and the bonds I've built through it are ones I know will last for years to come. When we play or sing music together, it feels like we're something so much bigger than ourselves. Music has also helped me grow as a leader. I've learned how to encourage others to do so many things. I've learned how to listen and how to be someone my peers can rely on. Because of everything I've experienced with Orchard music programs, I know that music will always be a part of my future. I hope to keep sharing it with others and someday with my own children, so they can experience the same joy, connection, and sense of purpose that music has given me. I feel like I'm thriving when I'm performing. I could be having the worst day ever, and in 1 second, all of my bad feelings will be replaced by the feeling of faith and love. Because music makes me have faith that my whole life will come out just as planned. And it makes me feel like the luckiest girl in the whole world to be performing, learning, and growing with the Orchard Middle School Music Program.
I think the Orchard Middle School Music Program is a great thing that will help students grow certain skills in their life. The music program has helped me grow leadership skills by helping to lead and conduct the band and working on stuff that they're having trouble with them and helping us to sound better as a group. It has also let me practice my patience with my playing when I'm trying to learn a hard piece and practicing the fingering, notes, and embouchure over and over and over. In my 7th grade year, I wanted to be in the marching band, but the trouble was, bassoon and piano both don't march. So Mr. Sandberg stayed after school with me so I could learn the trombone. And now I play the trombone and the bass trombone for marching band. The music program has also given me motivation and something to love and work on as I practice a ton of different instruments while learning different music all the way. I believe that the band program is very good for students because it gives them something to try at and learn life skills while doing something they love.
Thank you, Ariel and Dalton, for your kind comments. Good evening, members of the board, staff, and families. Thank you for inviting the Orchard Middle School Music Program, for Pioneer, and for Foothills to be here tonight. You've just heard what our students can do with their instruments and voices, and I'd like to share in some of my students' own words what this program has done for their lives. Maria wrote that music at Orchard has taught her what working hard really means, and that when she plays, quote, music gives me peace and hope. Another student shared that music is not just a hobby, but a tool that helps them solve problems, try hard things, and even talk to people with more confidence. Several students talked about community. One of them said, being in the music program has helped me learn that working together can truly make something beautiful. Lauren put it this way, music helps us learn to work through problems with others instead of giving up. For some, music is a reason to come to school. Kimberly wrote that being in mariachi gives her confidence, bravery, and joy. She said, quote, if I didn't have music, it would take away one of the reasons I like coming to school. It matters, end quote. One of our band and mariachi students told me that this program has helped him choose a future career in music and given him a class to look forward to on tough days. He also hopes mariachi will expand so more students can experience their culture and, in his words, quote, put smiles on people's faces, end quote. Others talked about mental health. One student shared that band helps them shut out the, quote, needless drama of middle school. Another said simply that music lights up my day and gives them something to look forward to. These are just a few voices from many. For our students, music is not extra. It is where they learn persistence, teamwork, responsibility, leadership, and hope. On behalf of the students at Orchard, Foothills, and Pioneer, thank you for supporting our music programs and for helping us keep this life-changing work going. Thank you.
Well, we want to thank you all for coming. And we're also wondering if there might be a little bit more that you can play for us.
Or play it again.
Or play it again. Yes, that sounds great too.
I like it.
One more time. One more time.
Just so you know.
Red, outside, hot. One. Roll up, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here tonight. And thank you for all of the logistics that it took to make everything happen. One of the beautiful things about working at the district office is that we know when there is going to be a parade that is going to be happening soon, because we get to hear the orchard go around the building, and it's amazing. So thank you for the sneak peek and the preview, and very excited.
And I want to add, thank you for eloquence in your music, eloquence in your words, and how you demonstrate that the different programs and richness that are available to you in the Wenatchee School District work with each other and give you opportunities. So thank you for making the effort to come here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. All right, now we are going to move on to the consent agenda, and this is, on to the citizen comment. That's why I cross them off normally. If any member of the public would like to make a citizen comment, please sign up online 15 minutes before the meeting or complete a citizen comment form. Forms are available at the room's entrance and should be turned in to Board Secretary Kim White. English and Spanish speakers will be allowed 3 minutes of comment time with additional time allowed for translation. Ms. White will keep a timer that will notify you when your time expires. Please be aware that the board's role is to receive comments. It will not respond to questions or challenges, and the board silence does not signal agreement or endorsement of the speaker's remarks. Do we have what is behind the line people?
One person signed up, Juan Rodriguez.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Juan Rodriguez. I lived in Wenatchee Valley since I was 3 years old and graduated from Wenatchee High School. I had the honor of serving in the long-term facilities planning committee, and I now serve as the co-chair for the Vote Yes committee for the Wenatchee school bonds. Tonight, I'm here to urge you to vote yes to move this bond forward and allow our community the opportunity to decide on it. As a part of the facilities planning committee, we toured Wenatchee High School, and I was truly shocked by what I saw. The conditions our students are learning in are rough. From outdated classrooms to aging infrastructure, these are not the conditions that reflect the excellence and care that our students deserve. Our committee did not come to this recommendation lightly. We explored every possible alternative, including partial remodels and smaller scale updates, but after extensive study, we concluded that this bond proposal is the most responsible long-term solution for our district and taxpayers. Continuing to patch things like the high school's aging HVAC system will only cost our community more in the years ahead. As a community member, a community organizer, and a father of 2 future Panthers, I'm asking you to do the right thing for Wenatchee's future. Approving the bond is an investment not just in our schools, but in the strength and success of our entire community. Please vote yes tonight to move this bond forward. Strong, safe schools build a thriving Wenatchee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have one more.
Yes,
we do. Melanie Tovar.
Good evening. My name is Melanie Tovar, and in my capacity as a student at Wenatchee High School, where I have spent the last 4 years, I've experienced firsthand the challenges we face in our everyday lives. One of the first things you notice about our current building is the lack of windows. While many will argue that it isn't much of a problem, and we've adapted to it over the course of years, I strongly believe that it's a problem. Without natural light, many classrooms feel dim and closed off. Some teachers have even gone as far as creating fake windows to make the room feel more natural and welcoming. But despite all this effort, it all affects us as students. It makes it hard to stay focused, stay energized, and less motivated to learn in a dark room. Natural light plays a big role in our education than most people realize, and it's something our current building simply does not provide. Secondly, we've all heard of the temperature inside the high school. During spring and summer months, students have to layer down just to avoid overheating in classrooms. Many classes, especially near the English wing, have had to move into the commons or even into teachers' prep rooms just to create a teachable environment. And if those two options become too full, other students go into the halls, which should never be the case. Hallways are meant to be for students to move around, not lessons to be taught in. But even then, the heat becomes a huge distraction. I personally remember having to move classrooms during an exam because it was too hot to be in, losing valuable time, and then trying to concentrate in another room is something no student should experience. For those in PE, the situation is worse. Exercising in that heat is exhausting and discouraging. Some students even choose to skip school because the building can't maintain a comfortable temperature, and no one should ever feel forced to miss class for that reason. And as if the heat weren't already a challenge, the problem doesn't end there. When winter comes, the situation flips around. Now students layer up in about 2 to 4 sweaters just to stay warm. Some teachers even bring their own blankets because they never know what the temperature in their classrooms will be from one day to the next. Recently, what has played a big role in our building these past 2 months has been the smoke. It has impacted us negatively, where we've had to switch to half days for a week. The smoke was so bad it began to spread inside the building. As soon as you walked through the front doors, you could see the smoke drifting all the way to the science hall. You could even smell it, not a strong scent, but enough to where you knew the smoke had entered the building. I remember having to tell my cheer coach that practice shouldn't continue that day due to the poor air quality inside the school. Many practices ended up being canceled altogether because of how much smoke had entered the building. Opening the doors to let the air in wasn't an option, so large air conditioners and fans were set up throughout the building, just like the summer months. While they helped a little, they also created new problems: noise. The noise from the nearby fans made it difficult to hear teachers, and their size took up valuable space in already narrow hallways. If moving around the building wasn't hard enough before, the added equipment made it challenging for students to get by. These are just a few of the many challenges that students experience every single day at Wenatchee High Schools. Wenatchee High School's promise to its students is, we promise to build a foundation of diversity, equity, and inclusion from which students emerge future-ready. While this mission speaks of the foundation of who we are as students, our community also has a responsibility to help us build a stronger physical foundation, one that provides a safe and sustainable learning environment. Supporting this bond means investing in the future generations, ensuring that the promise made to our students is matched by the place we learn. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Corey, turn it over to you for special presentations.
Yes, let's kick it off with Trevor Carlson from Piper Sandler to share with us some of the updated numbers for the bond to build the new Wenatchee High School and replace the HVAC systems in 7 schools throughout the district. Trevor has come all the way over the mountains to join us this evening, and we appreciate him being here. Thanks, Trevor.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity, and thank you, Liz, for assisting with the technology. Appreciate it. Hard copies are in front of all the board members. There's also one piece of paper that's 11 by 17. Just to help out on legibility on very tiny numbers from an Excel spreadsheet. Thank you again. My name is Trevor Carlson. I work for Piper Sandler. We have the privilege for many years of serving as the district's bond underwriter. I appreciate, again, the opportunity to be here. President Jackson, Dr. Calloway, members of the board, thank you. Depending on how you would like to run your meeting, I am comfortable with taking questions live during the presentation, or you can wait till the end. Your choice. I can roll with it. Again, tonight is, thank you so much, is about education. Decisions have not been made. I have packet and up on the screen in a few pages, an example of what bond tax rates could look like for a very specific dollar amount. Again, just want to make sure the public and the community is fully crystal clear that no decisions have been made at this time. So with that, I'll kind of jump through and I think walk through the presentation, probably create some dialogue and some questions. So let's do that. The first page in front of you, there we go, are election dates. I included these all the way through 2028 just as schedule planning tools, milestone planning tools. On the far left, the election dates that are available to school districts. There are 4 different opportunities throughout the calendar year, and then backing up to the resolution filing date. So depending on the date you're targeting, go into that second column to then determine approximately when or before that date you should have a decision made and a resolution turned in to the state, or excuse me, the county auditor's office. A few folks that have heard this presentation before have seen a few of these slides. I don't want to belabor too much unless there are specific questions, but I wanted to make sure that we were looking at voted bond history, which is page 2. Again, those 4 opportunities throughout the calendar year to go to the ballot are February, April, August, and November. The passage rates for bonds going all the way back to 1992 are presented during those 4 discrete time periods on the upper portion of the graph, the upper graph. The lower graph shows passage rates for school bonds in the state of Washington in each specific calendar year. As you can see in 2025, 45% of the bonds that have been placed on the ballot through August. The ballot from November has not yet been certified. I will show you preliminary results and display those in just a couple of seconds. Long-term average, 40% of any bond on the ballot has passed over a decade, multiple decade-long history. So conversely, 60% are not successful. This year will be basically right at the historic passage rate. So that's good news. There's some hope. There's hope out there.
Trevor, and that's passed and validated. Is that, or because I know like Puyallup had its passed, didn't validate.
Yes, and let's talk about those
later.
Yeah, no, in just a couple slides.
Good.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. I want to make sure that we bring that up. Yes, and through August of 25, 45% have passed and validated. Next slide. I'm not sure if I'm in control or actually Liz is. I think Liz is. Yes, okay. This is not using. She's always in control. Second slide. Again, don't want to belabor the point, but just for your notes, and you can tuck this away. Again, congratulations on getting the EP&O passed. Right, 61, almost 62%. Very great turnout. You've had a long history of support on the operating side. That is wonderful. Passage rates in a very similar manner are displayed for operating levies on page 3. If you don't mind, we'll jump to the next. Page 4 shows capital levies, the same passage rate type display. And next slide, page 5. President Jackson to talk about what's happened this calendar year. The top half of the graph shows what happened in April, February of 25. The bottom portion of that table, as President Jackson mentioned, Puyallup School District had 2 attempts this calendar year. Both exceeded the supermajority level of 60%, yet did not ultimately pass because validation did not occur. Remember, 40% of the folks that turned out at the last general election need to turn out and vote. So you need to have a critical mass of individuals come out and vote yes on a bond. Bonds are the only excess levy that require validation. Transportation, capital / technology, operating levy, no validation requirement, 50% plus 1. Bonds are the outlier. So remember, think about our timeline here, our watermark for the validation requirement was November of '24 for all the bonds that were on the ballot in '25. November '24 presidential election, higher turnout in general, not excessively high turnout November '24 compared to November 2020. Wasn't off the charts different, it was actually a little bit lower, 24 compared to 20. Validation is not, it is something to be considered. It is by no means an excessive problem. Prior to 2025 and those two validation issues with Puyallup, we'd have to go back to 2016 for Renton School District. They came back later on in that year and passed. There was a snowstorm, and I think I've actually brought this up with certain individuals on the school board, where there was a snowstorm and the mail was, either people didn't fill it out and turn it in, or the mail wasn't being collected in a timely fashion. Prior to that, the last validation issue was in 2001. That was a long time ago. So again, you can count on one hand the instances where it became problematic. Next slide, Liz. I sent around these election results on Friday night. I have not updated since. Most counties have suspended the counting of ballots until November 25th when elections certify. The bond issues on the kind of upper middle portion of the table, Lake Chelan, Auburn, Orting, Spokane, and Linden were the 5 bonds on the ballot. 2 of those at this point are passing, Orting and Spokane, and both of those are validating also. So again, that's 40%. Remember, long-term passage rate for bonds is about 40%. Capital projects levies, just so you have them, some of those include technology. The next slide shows operating levies. Next slide, page 8. Your history, just so you and the community are all on the same page. Bond election results for Wenatchee School District on the upper portion of the slide. Again, operating levies on the lower portion. Look at all of those past results. Those were great results in the 60% range, going all the way up to 76% all the way back in February of '93. So great support, community support for funding, which ties directly into what we just heard, right? All the kids playing the music. Next slide, please. Tax rates. Remember, tax rates are a byproduct. They're a mathematical byproduct of the amount of dollars that are collected, whether it's bond or operating or capital, divided by the district's assessed value. Okay? Tax rates do not drive your funding. Your funding is approved in a dollar amount fashion. Okay, so that's really important. So you could say, why do we talk about tax rates? Tax rates are basically our singular way for us to determine amongst different individuals that hold different properties of different value, what different measures could mean to each individual on a tax basis, on a tax burden basis, a tax increase basis, depending on what type of measure may be put forward. So right now, in 2025, the total tax rate for the Wenatchee School District between operating levy and bond levy is $2.41. Varies dramatically. It was up to $5.99, I think is the high point in 2005. Again, the big driver, the denominator in that equation is the district's assessed value. And we'll look at some history in a few slides, and then we'll talk about some of the assumptions that have gone into the bond planning example on that 11 by 17 piece of paper that's in front of you all on the school board. Next slide, number 10, is a comparable tax rate chart ranked from highest total tax rate to lowest for all of the school districts in Chelan, Douglas, and Kittitas counties. Just to give you a sense of where you reside, with your geographical neighbors. A little bit of apples and oranges comparison. Steepykin, for example, assessed value of 55 million. You're at 7.8 billion. So not maybe a fair comparison, but geographically, that's how it turns. Next slide is probably a little bit more interesting. Looking at school districts all across the state of Washington that have a similar assessed value. So I grabbed 10 school districts that were ranked just a little bit higher assessed value than you, the 10 below you, and ranked those and sorted that group from highest to lowest in total tax rate. So similar tax bases from size, but obviously different composition. For example, Blaine, about 25% of their tax base is one entity. It's a very large British petroleum refinery. So apples and oranges from tax base composition perspective, but in totality, similar numbers.
So maybe jump the gun again, but like as we talk about, this bond would be 30 years, so that assessed value could change. So then that tax rate would also change if that number were to go up. Say if we had some data centers that came online, that 7.8 billion becomes a larger number.
Correct.
Tax rate would go down for the average consumer. Is that right?
Correct.
Or household.
Yes. I love this point. You know, I'm going to bring it up now. It may be a little bit before, by my design, but let's talk about assessed value and how it grows. So let's use extreme examples. If the assessed value grows dramatically, 20, 30% in a year, the school district does not receive a windfall of additional dollars. Remember, you're collecting a specific dollar amount based upon your EP&O, and your debt service or your bond payments are fixed, so we know what those collections are. As President Jackson alluded to, the change in that assessed value, change in the denominator, the dollar amount collected divided by the assessed value would then, if it grew dramatically, the assessed value, that tax rate would then decrease. The dollar amounts that you would collect would remain relatively similar year over year. And we'll look at why that will be slightly changed. I've been kind of working in a very simplified environment, but I just want to make sure that's crystal clear. And conversely, the assessed value goes down, which it has in the past, doesn't mean you collect less money. It's just spread over a smaller tax base. But that new construction piece, say a data farm, server farm, that broadens the ability to spread that tax burden over a larger tax base. Think of a very simplified example. I live here. I pay all the taxes. I'm the only person that lives here. Dr. Gallagher moves in. We're splitting the taxes now. President Jackson moves in. Now it's a third, right? That's the very simplistic way to think about the expansion of the tax base, not from an inflationary perspective, but from new parcels, new construction, additions. Very important. Next page on 12, please. We've talked a little bit about bonds, but why bonds? Bonds are the long-term mortgage, if you will, the ability for you to take a large capital facility need and spread those payments out for a significant amount of time to create as low of a tax burden as possible. Right? Bonds are, I use the terms debt, mortgage, a loan. It's a loan that we break into lots of different pieces to sell to many types of investors to optimize the financing, but ultimately folks are lending, if you get voter approval, the district money to go build, you pay back with property tax collections over a long period of time. Most likely a 20-year time period. To find a nice balance between keeping the payments low, but not having the interest costs become exponential as you add on another 10 years or even longer, the interest cost becomes very significant, and it hampers your ability in future superintendents, future boards to make different decisions on future capital needs. So So it's kind of a nice balance. We've talked about passage rates, 60% yes vote, 40% validation for bonds. And again, this is a new revenue stream that is created by the vote of the people. The vote of the people, if they pass a bond measure, just like the one you have on your books today, it gives you the ability to tax, regardless of rate or amount, sufficient dollars to pay principal and interest. So it's a very, very safe credit for investors that were looking to lend you money. Next page, please. Debt capacity. We always need to make sure that you are asking within the realm of the Constitution and the RCW. The calculation is your assessed value times 5% is the maximum amount of debt that you can issue in any given calendar year, less the amount of bonds that are already on the books. That equates to right now $348 million. You can borrow without the vote of the people. Think of that as a personal loan. You can think of that as the general fund backing that non-voted debt. The bottom calculation there is 3/8 of 1%. So a much more stringent capacity based upon the lack of creating an additional or a new or a dedicated revenue stream for repayment. Next slide, please. The bonds that you have outstanding on the books today are the bonds that we refinanced that were issued in 2014 originally. We refinanced those in March of 24, saved the taxpayers about $6.6 million in interest savings over 9 years by entering into that transaction. The final maturity of those bonds is in December of 2033. And again, on that 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, we'll walk through kind of what that looks like and the implications of what an additional ask from the voters on the bond side could look like. We have a very strong credit rating at AA3, and that was affirmed back in 2000 or earlier in September of this year. Next slide, please. In this, a lot of the concepts on page 15, we described and went into a lot of detail with your capital facilities group, right? And the education associated with that, and I appreciate folks from that team being here today. So really what we're thinking about when we're talking about bond planning are what are the costs, what are those scopes of work, how are you measuring the cost of each of those, tailoring a financing solution to each of those different project scopes, and then how are you going to pay for it? Bonds are the primary method, state matching dollars, school construction assistant program, SCAP, if that's been bantered around in conversations, that is sometimes a portion of the solution. Investment earnings, impact fees, things of that nature. Timing is very important in life. It is very important in determining the amount of bonds to be issued, when they will be issued, and you're dealing with three separate kind of pillars of law. Tax law, so the IRS, we need to make sure we're crossing, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, state law, and federal securities law. So we'll work hand in glove with your bond counsel to make sure that the timing and the tax law considerations are all buttoned up. And then ultimately, taxpayer impact. I could have started just right there and dove into the model, but I knew you needed a little bit of primer. It's been a little while since I've been here, but we'll get to the punchline in just a moment. So we're going to look through and discuss, and please stop me if you have questions. I want to make sure you're clear since I'm here. But we'll talk about the assumptions that go into the modeling, right? Because we don't have the answer. We're making our best guess based upon experience, history, and balancing pros and cons. Because there's not a right answer, but we're going to try and tailor a solution that meets you and your community's needs. Okay? So let's talk about interest rates on the next slide. As I mentioned, mortgage, loan, debt, bonds are a big loan. What's a loan have to do with interest rates? Has to do everything to do with interest rates. This is going to determine the amount that needs to be repaid over a long period of time. The top portion looks at interest rates for bonds that are similar to the Wenatchee School District's bonds. We hit all-time lows during the pandemic, as there was a massive amount of fiscal and monetary stimulation being put into the system. And guess what? Interest rates have increased over the last few years as the Federal Reserve has tried to tamp down inflation, right? Eggs, lumber, supply chain, all the things, right? We've seen a moderation. We've seen the Federal Reserve take a little bit more of a dovish stance by decreasing interest rates. But the Federal Reserve only controls the overnight lending rate between banks. So that's why we're seeing on the bottom graph, where those three different colored lines are, the short-term interest rates have decreased dramatically. So the gold line is a couple years ago, the blue line is today. The differential in the last couple of years is stark in the short end of the yield curve. So bonds or loans that mature in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say, much less of a change in those longer dated maturities. But still, that entire yield curve has shifted down. That means borrowing costs are significantly lower now than they were a couple years ago, which is important because you want to lock in low borrowing costs. That's the name of the game. Next slide. We've talked a little bit about bond ratings, a couple bullet points from the last report that Moody's Ratings put out, and then a scale on the right-hand side, AAA being the best. On average, Washington school districts are falling in the AA3 to single A level. Moody's, for example, Standard & Poor's, another rating agency, have really taken more of a negative tone on K-12 credits, bonds, across the nation. It's not you, it's not Washington, it's national. Enrollment is really the big driver, as enrollment across the nation has moderated or decreased in many, many areas. There's a little bit more pressure on the finances of school districts. But you have a very strong investment grade credit rating. Next slide, please. Assessed value. Again, the denominator in the tax rate equation. You never know what's going to happen with assessed value. But let's look at the history to help us determine how we should model going forward. So graphical representation up top. We have received a preliminary, again, emphasize preliminary calendar 26 assessed value at $8.5 billion. That's a preliminary growth year over year of 8.6%. Remember in this year, in 25, basically flat. It was down negative 0.1%. But significant growth, looking at the lower left-hand side, in 22 and 23, even in 24, double digits, and then a high single-digit growth rate. I've used 3% in the model going forward. You could say, why? Why 3%? I want to be conservative. I believe that your area is going to significantly grow significantly in the near term, in medium term. Long term it just becomes fuzzier, right? Or crystal ball becomes more opaque. In the middle right-hand side, it says 20-year, 10-year, 5-year compound annual growth rate. I'm really leaning into that 20-year compound annual growth rate at 6.4%. So what that means on average, over 20 years, this assessed value has grown 6.4% year after year after year after year. Let's cut that in half. That's about 3%. Another thing I can hang my hat on, if you look at inflation going back to the turn of the previous century, let's say we look at inflation over 100 plus years, it's really close to 3%. The Fed's target is 2. It's conservative. I want to make sure you all can stand behind a conservative, thoughtful approach on the bond tax rate planning side, because I want you to be able to have promises made, promises kept. If the world changes dramatically and assessed value gets cut in half, right, no one saw that, the model blows up, and we will be incorrect. But let's be conservative and constructive, hence 3%, okay? Next page shows the detail of the assessed value going all the way back to 2005. The second column in from the right is that new construction piece. And President Jackson and I were, having a conversation around that piece with, let's say, data center additions, right? If there's data center additions, if there's new housing developments, new commercial downtown, whatever it is that's additional, that's brand new, you add it in that column, and that diffuses the tax burden across a greater, the pie gets bigger, right? Next page is the one that's really difficult to see. Hopefully the big piece of paper helps slightly. I'm going to grab this microphone because I have to move. Because I want for you to see a couple things I think are really important here. So the top portion looks at assumptions. Your strong credit rating, the utilization of the school bond guarantee program. There's a program that we utilized that in 2024 with the refinancing. It's embedded in the resolution that was approved prior to the issuance of that debt, where you can utilize the state's credit rating. The state has a Moody's AAA at best. What that really does is bring down the borrowing cost for the school district, right? You have a very reliable cosigner. I've used today's interest rates plus 1%. Interest rates move around. We saw the graph, right? It goes up, goes down. I don't know where they're going to be in the future. Let's build some contingency. Think of this just like your construction program, right? You're going to have all these line items. There's going to be one at the bottom that says contingency, and it's going to be X%. So let's build that in. Assessed value at 3% growth. Again, this is a projected, estimated tax rate at a $290 million bond. Depending on how you would like to see this moving forward, we can, again, show some sensitivity and change dollar amounts, okay? I've broken that into 3 bond sales, and those are included here. If you follow me real quick up here, 27, 28, and in 29. I broke those into approximately equal bond sales. Your construction cash flow will determine the ultimate timing and magnitude of those bond sales. This is a pretty good guess right now. And again, remember, once you have an authorization in place, you're not forced to issue all of the debt at once. You can issue it over time, just up to that maximum authority. So in this example, $290 million. Remember I said you still have some bonds on the books, the ones that we refinanced last year that go out through 2033. That's the third column in under existing debt. So what we are doing is we are taking that existing debt into consideration, those 3 bond sales and the estimated payment structures right in the kind of middle of the sheet. We're looking at your operating levy, which this is in the way, but it's in the middle of the sheet. There we go. Do these numbers look familiar in the box? Those were just approved, so I plugged those in. And I made an assumption that it grows with assessed value over time. Very simplified assumption, but those, this last number at 2960 grows at 3%, every year. And what my goal is to structure this debt, put the payments in the optimal location in time to create a pattern of tax stability on the far right-hand side. So the bonds would be issued in this example in 27, hit the tax rolls in calendar 28. So in calendar 28, you see the increase to $4.38. Okay, so that delta between calendar 27 and calendar 28 would be $1.53 in total tax rate. So we're thinking about the entire stack of taxes between operating and bonds to create that pattern of tax rate stability. Questions?
This is a little bit of a tangent. This is taxes on property owners, correct?
Correct.
So I've had a couple people say, oh, well, I'm renting, so I can't vote. But that is not the case, right? It's everyone in the United School District can vote. So if we have a property owner that lives outside of the district, they would not be able to vote, but they would still be paying for the property that they own in the district.
That is correct. So the geographical boundary of this entire school district, every piece of real and taxable personal property would be assessed the amount divided by the proportionality of what they own of that pie, right? We own a small fraction, that entire obligation, which is the total collection amount right in the middle of this page, I think it says total of all levies maybe, that number divided by all of the property taxpayers turns into that tax rate. But you are correct, if you are a resident within the boundary of Wenatchee School District and you are 18 or older, you can vote. If you're a renter, ultimately your landlord is baking into their income dollars that they need to maintain their facility, generate probably some operating profit and expenses, and to cover expenses. And guess what one of those expenses is from a landlord's perspective? It's taxes. So implicitly they're paying taxes, they just don't get that bill directly. From a renter.
But I think it's important to remember that if you are in the boundaries, you are allowed to vote. Like
Yes.
you said, 18 and up. Like it is not if you own property you can, and if you don't, you don't. Everyone votes.
Amen.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Sorry, lots of small numbers on the paper. We can come back. There are no silly questions. If you're embarrassed and shy, you can call Corey or Sean and we can talk later.
You like talking late at night. Call up at 9, 10, fine.
We talk about bonds at all hours.
So I think the importance for me to note here is that you are showing when the 2014 bond drops off, and so you're kind of front loading or backloading the timeline a little bit, just to take into consideration that we're keeping this 438 consistent across the lifetime of the bond, except for those first couple of years, just to try and keep it consistent to the taxpayer, as opposed to just saying, let's do a flat rate, call it good.
Yes. And next slide, Liz, please.
See, I'm always
From a graphical representation perspective, I think, President Jackson, what you're describing, it might be highlighted. So the tax rates, we saw in the schedule, in the table, they moved around a lot. It really depends on a couple things, but the most important is the assessed value, right? As that goes up and down, those tax rates change. But remember, look at 2019. Your EP&O rate was capped, right? Legislation changed. What was that called? McCleary. And then after that, the levy lid changed and your tax rate was able to increase slightly to capture some more dollars that were already approved by voters that weren't capped by the legislation. So, you know, there's always things going on behind the scenes, but I think the big takeaway is your EP&O tax rates are these darker gray colors, your existing debt is this lighter blue, And then we're layering on those next three colors, the dark blue, the orange, and the yellow gold, systematically to create that pattern of tax stability at $4.38. Next slide, please. More numbers. What I've tried to display here are the annual tax bill changes based on a home value right in the middle of the screen, right where the audio alert is, at $500,000 in 2025. So I've taken that value, I've increased it every single year by the assessed value growth rate, the preliminary 26 and then 3% thereafter. So that's what that home, that theoretical home would do, the value, that's how it would change over time. Multiply that by $4.38 equals an annual total tax bill, and then on the far right, the delta, that change year over year. Okay, so a little bit of a bump in 26. Your EP&O was approved at a little bit higher level than it was the previous election. So that accounts for some of that increase. 2028 is when the new debt would hit the books in this example, and then a leveling out of incremental tax cost over time.
And Trevor, this assumes no, like, again, going back to the data center example, this assumes no new big projects like that. So this would be everyone sharing the growth evenly.
Yes.
Right? So this
Yes.
house that's $500,000, this is showing the growth as if that house were the only thing growing. Well, I mean, all the houses are growing the same way, but it's not new construction, not new other things that would be taking some of that tax burden.
Correct. You are correct, yes. So, an easy way to describe that, very conservative. Right, a conservative projection. Does that help? That's the bond planning piece, and I've got a couple slides I want to touch on, if you'll entertain them, from our voter survey results that we rolled out in September. Okay, so next slide. And why I wanted to bring these up is, I think, again, Wenatchee is Wenatchee. Wenatchee is not another district. You have to have the finger on the pulse of your community. What's the right project? What's the problem you're solving? What's the needs analysis? But this can give you some ideas. And I think the other takeaway is you need to have just a couple, 2 or 3 descriptors of why this bond is important and why it solves problems. This is marketing 101. What do marketers do? They scan the environment, they try and find a problem, and they bring a solution. Who gets all the money on Shark Tank? People that bring a solution to a problem, right? So this is, your business mindset is on right now. We asked folks, and we allowed them to provide all different types of answers, but CTE has resonated very strongly for support for school district needs, to support additional funding for decades. Safety and security, another important piece. I'm going to harken back again to the very eloquent speakers. I'm impressed. I would not want to be up there when I was in middle school. It's hard enough now. But what I heard mental health a few different times in those conversations. I'm not a teaching and learning expert. I'm not a counselor. I'm a finance guy. but it resonates. It's resonated with voters that we asked across the state. I heard it from the kids. I don't know what you do with it. It's a really interesting piece. But this gives you some things to think about. Next slide, please. Instead of giving an open-ended ability to provide answers to that same question, we told the respondents, pick one thing. Pick one of those items. CTE, ranked high, the mental health support, safety and security. Again, these aren't your answers, but they are answers that we've heard that are statistically significant from a blind survey from voters across the state of Washington. So take it with a grain of salt, but it gives you some things to think about as you're trying to describe the benefits from a possible election. Next slide. There we go. 25. Yes, thank you. Another important piece here that's very near and dear to communication folks that may be in the room. How do you get this information out to the community? How does the Yes Committee get the marketing out? And I've said those in two discrete, separate ways. Information, marketing. This describes how, can you go back? Oops. Sorry, things got a mind of its own tonight, it's okay. Page 25, how do you currently receive your news and information? Multiple responses are accepted. Print, online newspapers, local television. I won't read the list to you. It makes communications job very difficult because you have to be good at a lot of different things. You can't choose one or two things, you need to do them all. Okay, next slide. I wanted to break down basically that same list, but between parents and non-parents. We always have these challenges in dissecting these voter populations to hit certain groups that may be more difficult than others. What it's showing you is emails from the school district, websites, super important for parents. They're on those. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Non-parents, it's print or online newspapers, local television. Printed mailers are still, they rank high on both subsegments there. Don't discount the printed mailer. I've said that for years and years, and the data shows. To get the word out, if you are considering placing something on the ballot. It's not easy.
Here's some music from your life.
That
Press 1.
includes what I think I wanted to bring to you all tonight. Any other questions, concerns? Again, if you think of things later, happy to have follow-up conversations, happy to come back. Whatever you need, I'm the teacher. I don't have an axe to grind. This is your community. I'm trying to find a solution for you on the financing side that matches your community's needs on, possibly the high school. There were a couple folks that talked about that tonight. It's your decision. Happy to support you as you move through time.
I've asked, as you probably can tell, my questions all along. But thank you for all this information, because I feel like this was, I think a really good, like you said, preliminary. This is informative. This is helping us decide what we want to do as a board. And I think there's a ton of good information, and I'm looking forward to when we can give you a little bit more scope analysis, that we can then take that and kind of refine these numbers more.
Yes, and that's the natural progression. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, President Jackson.
Yep.
Trevor, can I ask one question about the comparison charts where you show the total tax burden as a rate in similarly sized districts and also locally.
Yes.
And you're very conservative in using 3% back-to-back, so there's no skewing and no gaming that the assessed value will go up faster than other costs in this. My question really is, if you're looking at that from a risk analysis point of view, probably most of the time the assessed value has been beneficial to reducing the tax rate over time. So if you are a fresh, new, high tax rate person in a pool where a lot of people are 10 years into it, you're probably going to look worse in the rankings in terms of looking more expensive than you would be in reality over time. Is that a reasonable assumption?
That is a very astute observation. And I think you need to frame that in relation to the comparison of the original projection versus maybe what the tax rate looks like 10 years down the road. Because what I want to put you all in a situation, promises made, promises kept. Let's say that for simplicity's sake, we're projecting a tax rate that's $1, and it's $1 for 20 years. What I hope happens is that assessed value grows, new construction is additive, and that tax rate starts to go down slowly over time. So you can say to your community, we projected $1, maybe in 5 years it's 95 cents, maybe it's 90 cents, but there's a slow ticking down of that tax rate over time. The other reason I don't want to be too aggressive on the tax rate assumptions, again, I'm proposing 3%, you all can override me. This is your plan. Can you go back a couple pages to the big piece of paper that's in front of you all, which is slide 20. In the middle of that slide, right here where it says 3%, those are the changes year over year of the total tax collections. They're 3%. Oh, the assessed value growth rate's 3%. Because what I'm assuming is assessed value growing at 3%, a stable tax rate, assessed value times tax rate in dollars per thousand equals money, revenue. That's what this column right in the middle is the anticipated revenue collection, taxes levied between bonds and operating over time. If I have a growth rate, let's say it's 13%, then tax bills would be going up at that clip of 13%. If I'm trying to maintain a level tax rate. A constant times a constant tax rate times a growing assessed value is more revenue. So I'm trying to find that balance of maintaining a tax rate that is palatable to taxpayers, but not overburdening taxpayers on an ongoing basis, which I think is, can you go 2 slides forward, please? Which is then that $500,000 house graphic, this one, where there is going to be a bump up in a calendar year, right? You have existing debt, there's a plateau, we have to add some debt on top of that. There's nothing we can do about that. So there will be a tax spike, for lack of a better term, increase, but then we're gonna try and moderate that over time. Does that help?
Yes, I think it is, and I think I was really thinking about managing the perception. If it gets into a comparison, are we a high tax or a low tax district? And for prudence and fiscal management, you have to do exactly that kind of forecast to be able to deliver. But it could be that if assessed values had a higher rate of escalation than other things, that you would look a high tax district as compared to your neighbors who did their bonds 10 or 15 years ago, funded them
Yes.
5 years ago,
Yes.
in the voters' mind.
Yes, yes, that is correct. In the comparison, in the relative growth rates, right? If you're in a district where, let's say it's flatline, you're gonna have artificially higher tax rate than if you're in a high growth area. So it's not a perfect comparison, in which you've pointed out very eloquently. That's the downside.
So, but the other thing is like in 2024, when we refinance, we are locking in something for 20 years, but if it gets better, we can always refinance and save the taxpayers money, right? We're not getting more money, like when we passed $6.6 million back to the taxpayers,
Yeah.
we didn't get more money, taxpayers got it back. We're
Right.
collecting the same amount.
Yes, that was taxpayer relief. Those were not windfall dollars into the district's general fund. Those were taxes that were expected to be paid based on a fixed borrowing cost. We were able to refinance, drop the borrowing cost, and generate those taxpayer savings where, again, in a simple world, they owed $100 every year for the next few years, and we dropped it to 90, right? That's the conceptual, simplistic way to describe it. Not the real numbers.
Sure. I'm just,
Yeah.
thinking of it, 20 years is a long time, and I think we do have some flexibility on how we handle that down the road if need be, or
Yes.
if the opportunity arises.
Correct. Well said. Thank you, Liz, for helping me. I appreciate it.
Trevor, thank you so much. We appreciate your time, you being here, and for explaining all the things that are hard on paper.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor.
Okay, well, up next we have Executive Director of Business and Finance, Sean Fitzgerald, with the 24-25 year-end finance report, which is a big deal. It is a big deal to close out a year on the 24-25 side of things. This is also, I want to remind you as you're listening tonight, this is the budget year where we did some major restructuring in the Wenatchee School District. So this is the year that we reduced $8.7 million in our operating budget. And these are the results of that work, along with a lot of other things that Sean's going to share with us tonight. So Sean, thank you.
Good evening, President Jackson, members of the board, and Superintendent Callahart. It's great to be here tonight to present on the year end for our 2024-25 school year. One slide back, please. Oh. So as you're all familiar with, our district fund structure, so school districts operate on a governmental accounting, or governmental and accounting and finance operate on a fund basis. So funds, we have 5 different funds. The general, ASB, debt service, capital projects, and transportation vehicle. And each of these funds are designed to achieve certain specific objectives within the school district accounting. So they're their own separate bodies and with their own separate purposes. And as we go into more details throughout the year in the report, funds can be transferred for specific purposes to specific funds. But overall, basically the 5 funds are operating independently of each other with certain exceptions. Next slide, please. One more, keep going. So to start off, our general fund. The general fund is our largest of the 5 funds. And basically anything that doesn't fall under the 4 other funds goes under the general fund. So typically, general fund is accounting for over 85 to 90% of activity within the school year, both on the revenue and expenditure side, and accounts for normal and recurring operations of the school district, So teaching, teaching and learning, food services, maintenance, people transportation, they can fall under here in the general fund. Next slide, please. One more, just terminology and background, which I'll go into more detail in the next slide. So we'll start off here with our revenue side. So we're looking at, we finished the year end at $127.5 million, which came into about almost 99% of budgeted revenue. This also includes budgeted capacity. I'll have a future slide showing without capacity. But overall, with capacity, we had a budget of $129.1 million. So of that, about 99% was collected. And as we can see, prior year came in about almost 126.9 million. So we saw an increase of about $539,000 in revenue from last year. Going through here, just kind of going down. So we have our local taxes. The vast majority of the revenue that's in there is our local EP&O levy. And so you can see, and some other sort of things, but mostly it's the EP&O levy. So we had about, received about 12.9 million versus 12.6 from prior year. You'll see our state funding, both at the 71.9 and the 27.4 million. We take those up. It's about 99.3 or approximately 78% of all of our district revenues. So that's an increase of about $1.9 million from prior year. Moving down, you'll see federal general purpose. So you can see we budgeted for $300,000, but we only received $28,000. So this was an unpleasant surprise we received from the state this year. Generally, this is our federal forest tax revenue. And for year over year, we have a very consistent revenue source from this side. And generally, we're getting about $300,000 each year on this. But this year, basically, we just got notification from the state. It's like, oh, by the way, we're not getting, these distributions have run out, and so you're going to receive quite substantially less than prior years. And then additionally, the state was like, we're also going to, usually we would receive state apportionment plus the federal forest revenue. So now the state has changed the rules and said, whatever revenues you receive from federal forest revenues, we'll subtract from your state apportionment. So kind of a double loss there on the revenue side. So that's where we're seeing our expectation. You know, we can see last year it was about almost $305,000. But our expectation now going forward is we're not going to be seeing these $300,000 revenue sources for the near or foreseeable future. Federal special purpose. So a couple of things here explaining the two variances, both the budget and the prior year variance. So this year we received almost $12 million in our federal special purpose. So that's our title programs, title and migrant. You know, in prior years that was our ESSER funding as well. And so you can see last year we had about 14.8 million. This year it was about 12 million. So the biggest difference there is the loss of the ESSER funds. So we exhausted all of the ESSER funds during the 23-24 school year. So now we know we had about 2.8 less million dollars than we had previous from last year. And then you can see the budget variance here again. We had 16.5 million. So it's like, were we expecting to receive all of that? No. So a lot of our budget capacity is built into that line item. So it's there as a cushion if we were going to obtain extra revenue throughout the school year. We can take advantage of that without having to do a budget revision with the school board. So it just kind of provides that extra buffer. And on future slides, I will show you what it looks like without capacity. And then another large item is our other financing sources. So you can see there, current year to date, almost $1.7 million. We had zero in the budget and zero in the prior year. So Sean, what is going on there? So what is happening here is a lot of this is about $1 million transferred back from the capital projects fund related to the softball funding. And then we also had additional surplus sales And then also we're recording our leases in there as well. So we have new accounting requirements that we have to comply with. And one of those is when you're doing a lease, you have to record the entire present value now on the books. So you'll see, so of that 1.6 million, about $530,000 is just our new printer leases, and you'll see a corresponding expenditure in future slides of the same amount. But the OSPI, they want us to book the full amount, so that's being reflected on our books so they can see the lease. So that accounts for a large increase there as well. Any questions on revenues? All right, next slide, please. So here's just kind of the same data, just presented in a table, a different format. Again, you can see just comparison year to year, not much changes. Of course, the biggest change you can see is the federal special purpose. Again, that decline from last year was due to no more ESSER funds. And then we see that slight increase on other financing sources on the far right, again, just due to transfers back into the general fund from capital projects, and then also recording the entire leases on our books to comply with accounting requirements. Next slide, please. One more. All right, now we can jump into expenditures and uses. So again, we report expenditures about $128.6 million, which was an increase of almost $950,000 from prior year, excluding transfers to the capital projects fund. So what we have here, just going down, $128.6 million versus $133.2 million budget. So again, about 96.5% of the budget. And then comparison to last year, we had about 127.6. Just kind of moving down again, regular instruction. That is, again, the bulk of our budget. That's our learning and teaching. So regular instruction includes, basic ed, alternative learning, our open doors program. That's where our teachers that's where our teachers are under the regular instruction. Then we move on to special education, vocational education, that's our CTE program. Skill Center, compensatory education is all lap high poverty. All of our federal programs are in there as well. That follows along again with other instructional programs as well. Again, you can see the large gap in other instructional programs, 1.7 versus 6.1 budgeted. Again, that's where a lot of our capacity is on the expenditure side. And then in comparison to the prior year, we had about, we have 1.7 million this year, about a $40,000 increase. And then again, support services, that's our district-wide maintenance and operations, food services, district office, that makes up that line item. Then when we get down to other financing uses, we see transfers to the capital projects fund. So you can see last year we transferred 5.5 million over for the construction of the new softball field. And then here on our, for the 24-25 school year, we have $850,000 transfer and $500,000 budgeted. So what happened here? So we know that we transferred $500,000 back to the capital projects fund for emergency and preventative maintenance. And I'll walk through with a breakdown of all those projects when we get to the capital projects fund. But then what happened was back in January, in the previous slide, we discussed moving $1 million back for the softball funding, and was going to just kind of draw down the fund reserves to accomplish any other tasks that would happen throughout the school year. But then we had, during August, we had our issues with the HVAC and the high school roofing, and we realized, well, we probably have to put some of that money back into the capital projects to ensure we can cover any costs that have arisen. So that was what caused moving. So of that $1 million that came back in during January, we had to move about $350 back just to ensure we had adequate reserves to address some of those issues that were occurring in August. And then overall, we can see the over-under, and I'll go into more detail on the future slide. decrease of about 1.9 million. So that very at the over under. So of that, we're going to see a decrease of 1.9 to our fund balance, which I'll go to in a future slide. Next slide, please. So again, same data, just presented in a different format. So we're seeing increases. Where are we seeing decreases? Where are we seeing increases? So we can see the decrease in the regular instruction side, also at federal special purpose, again, directly related to ESSER, COVID-related funding there. But we're also seeing increases at special education, CTE, and our compensatory education, and also our support services. So not huge increases, but something we are paying attention to. Next slide, please. So here are the expenditures, but instead of presenting them in the program format, we're kind of looking at by our object code. So basically salaries and benefits, supplies and materials, purchase services or contracts, and capital outlay. So you can see here again the breakdown. So of our budgeted, of what we spent last year, you know, salaries and benefits made up about $170 million, or 83% of total monthly expenditures. So that's an increase from $80,000 from prior year. Generally, you know, we're aiming for that average of about 85%. That's how, kind of like the average school district in the state is like 85% salaries and benefits, and the remainder is 15%. So we're right there. So purchase services, 13.3 million, or 10%. So that's an increase of 1.1 million from prior year. And a lot we can attribute this increase to is Running Start, because that is a contract with the college. So a lot of this increase in expenditures related to the increase in Running Start enrollment at the same time. So again, we're not paying more because we got the funding from the state, but it was a pass-through. So now that's how we're seeing it. So it passes through under the purchase services line. And then supplies and materials, 6.9 million, or 5% of total expenditures, which resulted in a decrease of $1 million from the prior year. And then last but not least, I highlighted again the capital outlay. So again, this is the other side of the coin related to reporting leases. So capital outlay is vehicles, equipment, any sort of things that are required to meet the capitalization threshold, but it also requires us to record those leases as well. So even though, yes, we increased about $684,000 from prior, but of that increase was due to us reporting that lease, which we need to do under new accounting requirements. And so there's a $532,000 revenue source and a $532,000 capital outlay, so it has no impact on the fund balance. Any questions on expenditures? Next slide, please. So here again, same data, just in a different format. Next slide, please. So again, here is our data again, but we're removing the budgeted capacity. We have about $6.1 million in budgeted capacity. So you can see the kind of before and after for both revenues and expenditures. So you can see on the revenue side, we go from about 129.1 to 122.9. So again, the importance of having capacity allows us to take on this additional revenue. So once you remove that, we're kind of almost 3.75% above budget, and then compared to on the expenditure side is about 1.36% over. So again, this is why we do budget capacity. This is why we include it. So even though we kind of have these large budget to actual variances in certain areas like federal special purpose or compensatory education or other instructional programs on the expenditure side, it just allows us that cushion to account for any revenues or expenditures that may come in during the school year without the need for budget revision. Next slide, please. And again, here's the same data with and without budget capacity. So again, The biggest thing you can see here that really is only jumping out is the capital outlay, but as we discussed, a lot of that was due to partially due to the new lease. Next slide, please. Moving on to fund balance. So again, fund balance is our district reserves or savings account, and not all fund balance reserves are available to use at any time. So as we go through, we have non-spendable, assigned, committed, restricted, and then our unassigned. Next slide, please. So familiar slide from the monthly financial reports. Again, just comparing expenditures versus our ending fund balance. So budget versus actual versus our average monthly expenditures. So you can see here for 24-25 school year that we're finishing above budget, but they're also kind of correlating and tying in together with our fund balance reserves are matching our monthly expenditures. Next slide, please. And again, now we have the full, we saw this slideshow a couple of board meetings ago, but now it's completed because we have our full data for the 24-25 school year. So now we can just compare our entire fund balance reserves for the school year on a monthly basis and how it compares to our previous 3 school years and where it relates to our 5% minimum fund balance, as represented by the dashed red line at the bottom. So you can see here, again, they fluctuate on a monthly basis, with October and April being our highest revenue months. That's when we receive our property taxes. The property tax revenues from the EP&O levy. But between October and April, we are reliant on our fund balance reserves during that time. So state apportionment is lower. We don't receive our highest state apportionment until July and August. So we're using our fund balance reserves between August and April. And as you can see, even from each 4 years, a consistent downward trend between those months before going back up in April. Again, as we discussed in previous board meeting, we saw a large decrease there in June. Again, that was a state funding issue because they did not budget enough capacity. But we did receive our full revenues in July at the start of the new state fiscal year. And then we can see ourselves leveling out there in August. You can see the last couple of years, it's like, why are they going, why are we staying relatively flat between July and August, whereas like 21-22 and 22-23 are both increasing. And that's due to all of the ESSER funding we received at that time. So 21-22, that's when we started receiving those initial ESSER amounts, I think the CARES 1 program, and then that continued in 22-23. Again, we were using ESSER funding instead of our own kind of state funds, so that allowed us to build up our reserves at that time. And then you can see 23-24, transferring funds out. You can see between October and November that decline, moving funds into capital projects for the softball field and utilizing those reserves at that time. Next slide, please. So here's the same data, but we're we're just focused on our unassigned fund balances, unassigned, the minimum fund balance, and our committed fund balance. I've included committed because of the board's policy or board's resolution to use some of the committed fund balance to offset budget reductions. So that's included here as well. And as you can see with the state funding issue in June, because to remind everyone, since not all fund balance reserves are available at the time, we've focused strictly on, okay, what can we use? And that's our unassigned or committed fund balances. So you can see there in June, we briefly fall below our minimum fund balance policy of 5%. Again, that's why we have that policy in there in place to address unexpected revenue shortfalls, and that took everyone by surprise in June, but we had reserves to account for that. And as you can see, we got the rebound there in July and it settled out in August. Next slide, please. Okay, so where are we going? So 24-25 to 25-26. So we finished with an ending fund balance of almost 13.2 million, and we had budgeted for 10.3 million. So we ended up having a almost favorable variance of about 2.7 million. And a lot of that, just kind of walking you through the factors, you add them all up on the right side, it's like, how did we do better than, because of the short thing, we beat budget. And so what were the factors involved in that? So we know one of the biggest factors was local effort assistance. So we received an additional $1.1 million in LEA funding that we weren't anticipating. And just to go back to Trevor's presentation, this was due to the fact that our assessed value decreased by negative 0.1%. So LEA is based on enrollment and assessed value growth. So in this case, since assessed value did not grow, the state gave us more money. When I'm doing this presentation a year from now, that will not be the same case because assessed value grew by 8.6%. So we received less LEA funding for this year. But we got a windfall this year, and that helped us out greatly. Another factor was budgeted positions internally filled. So during 23-24 school year and building the 24-25 budget, with all the reductions and the closure, almost $8.9 million in reductions and the closure of Columbia Elementary, there was a lot of movement in the district. And a lot of this was occurring also at the same time when we're building the budget. And so when the budget's just a placeholder, it's a point in time. And then it's set and then things change. And when we were kind of evaluating in the fall, I'll give my timeline here. So if we're going to the fall of 2024, we start looking at our budget and saying like, okay, what positions have been filled, what positions have been open, or still open. And a lot of things what we saw was positions that were in budgeted positions had been filled by people that were already in the district. So this resulted in a savings of $1.1 million as well. Enrollment, $500,000 increase there. We had a conservative budget on our enrollment projections, and we were able to beat it by about $500,000 in extra revenue there. Another factor, again, just beginning fund balance, we finished $150,000 at our beginning fund balance. So last year at this time when I was doing this presentation, our projections were we were going to finish at 14.9 million, and we started the year at 15.1. Then some negative amounts here. So safety net, about a reduction of about $150,000. We budgeted for 1.2 million. We received about 1,050,000, so $150,000 less than we expected. And then just kind of going through line items, just miscellaneous things, about $140,000 difference there as well. And then going sources and uses, so our net transfer. So going back, when I was doing this presentation in June and early August, before we were counting the HVAC issues at the high school, I had about a $500,000 net transfer. But again, had to make a $350,000 transfer to cover those costs moving into capital projects. So that favorable variance shrunk by $350,000. Positions internally filled were part of our overall budget reductions for the 25-26 school year. So we saw we had, we're running a deficit, but it's like, hey, these positions have been filled already. We can close out. We don't need to be double counting people. That helped us out with our budget reductions there. So that's the favorable side. So we did beat budget by 2.7 million. However, our fund balance still declined by about $1.9 million. You can see that on the left-hand side there as well. And then moving into the 25-26 school year, it's like, okay, where are we starting off? So again, we anticipated, projections over the summer, we would start at 13.6 million. But however, the biggest, once you take that out, when we're looking at that $425,000 variance, we can attribute about $350,000 to that transfer right at the end of August. So if we didn't have that transfer, we would have been only off by about $75,000 in our projections. Yeah, a lot of numbers. Any questions on fund balance? Next slide, please.
You should have let Trevor go second.
I know, right? We were trying to outnumber each other. So comparison, revisiting minimum fund balance. So we're looking at 24-25 school year, and then with our beginning, how would we look? How would those fund balance accounts compare if we move to 6%? So we can see here with the 13.1 million or 13.2 million in fund balance reserves. If we were to increase from 5 to 6%, again, roughly about $1.2 million. So the unassigned fund balance would increase from about 6.7 to 8.1 million. Next slide, please. Any questions on general fund before we move on to capital projects? Next slide, please. So here's a breakdown of our capital projects fund. So if we're looking at our breakdown, we had about $1.1 million in revenues and about 2.8 in total expenditures. Combined with a transfer back from the general fund of $1 million, utilized about $2.6 million in resources for the capital projects fund. So our revenue sources, again, $850,000 to transfer from the general fund. And then our state special purpose, $210,000 came from a CTE grant, and also the initial revenues of our skill center grants. So again, our $14.5 million state grant for skill center renovation. You can see the difference there between actual and budget. We were anticipating maybe it would be, moving into a construction phase. There were a lot of unknowns when we were building the budget in the summer before, but things have just kind of kicked off during this summer, this last summer. And then local support, investment earnings, and our rental property income. So you can see there, investment earnings are dropped from 330,000 to 78,000. So again, a lot less in the reserves. A lot more reserves in last year when we transferred all the money from the general to the capital projects for the softball. And while it sat in the bank account, it was earning interest, but we had a lot less this year, so that is reflected in the current year revenues. If we're looking at our expenditures, breakdown by the numbers of our projects on the right-hand side. So skill center modernization, both sites and buildings, about $84,000. And then a variety of projects. We finished off the girls varsity softball field. That's an additional $2 million expenditure for this year. And then the remainder was related to the $500,000 transfer for emergency cap and preventative maintenance. So focus on the locker rooms, the elevator at Foothills, and then bathrooms, and then of course the HVAC and roof repair, and then additionally an HVAC at Orchard as well.
Sean, is that Orchard, is that just renting the portable chillers, or is that actually fixing the HVAC?
That's actually fixing the HVAC.
Thanks.
Next slide, please. So how we finish? So our beginning fund balance reserves, $272,000 for the 25-26 school year. Compared, we finished about $97,000 better than projected. But again, that's kind of the only reserves we have. When we're looking forward for the 25-26 school year, most of our revenue funding will be related to being reimbursed for the skill center grant, but all emergency preventative maintenance will be coming from, again, a $500,000 transfer from the general fund. Next slide, please. Any questions on capital projects? All right. Debt service. Next slide, please. One more. So again, just focusing on our debt service activity related to our one outstanding bond, which Trevor has discussed in our previous presentation, which will expire at the end of 2033. So again, pretty straightforward. It was a lot less exciting this year compared to last year because we had no bond refinancing, which accounts for the $52.7 million in August 2024 on the right-hand side. So there were no refinancing this year. It was just straightforward receiving local property tax collection, balancing out versus our bonds and interest, which we pay. We have a bond schedule, fixed bond schedule, which we follow. So no surprises there. I mean, almost 100% on the revenue side, almost 99% on the expenditure side when we're doing comparison to budget to actual. We're seeing a decrease about $830,000. That was as expected. We're slowly drawing down on our fund balance reserves for debt service. I think what will be better illustrated on the next slide. Yes. So you can see here we drew down, we started the year with 4.3 million and then drew down to 3.5 million. So again, drawing down on our reserves, this is deliberate in some respects to comply with IRS tax law. It's like not a very, it's kind of a cumbersome rule, but you can only hold so much in your reserves at one time for IRS compliance, and we work with Trevor and Piper Sandler to make sure we're doing our projections correctly and drawing down on these reserves. It also helps to lower tax rate as we're going out less for property tax collection. So that lowers tax rates, and we're relying on reserves to pay off the bond. But we're drawing down our balances deliberately and on a slow basis just to reach opportune levels. And then any sort of remainder we have in there can be used to jumpstart any new bond construction for future bonds. Any questions on debt service? Next slide, please. ASB, next slide. Next slide. So again, ASB activity, cultural, athletic, recreational, or social activities only. So here we're just focused on student activities outside in the district. So we can see here, again, revenues exceeded expenditures. Revenue is $975,000 versus $865,000 there. So we had positive growth. But we can see less activity compared to last year. We had about $1.1 million in revenue versus $925,000 in expenditures. So we saw both a decrease on the revenues and expenditure side compared to prior year. Next slide, please. Again, just the same data. We carry about $250,000 in additional capacity on both revenues and expenditure side. So once you remove capacity from the budget, you can see about 85.7% of revenues and about 82% on the expenditure side. Next slide, please. So again, where are we seeing the decreases, where were the changes? We saw the biggest decrease, we saw stability at the general student body and athletics classes. Private monies makes up donations, so that can fluctuate from year to year. But we saw the biggest decrease in club activity. And a lot, sometimes, that can just be contributed to what is happening in that year. If there's a big trip or a big fundraiser. So again, something we'll pay close attention to, but again, depending on what fundraising activities or what, big trips or big, things that are being planned, that fluctuates from year to year. Next slide, please. So So again, you can see the corresponding decrease on the expenditure side related to clubs and private monies, but also just increases at the athletics and general student body. Next slide. How we finished the year. So increase in fund balance of about $109,000. So we did better than budget. And then 25, 26. We're projecting finish a little bit higher, but we're only off about by $55,000 on the summer projections. So ASB is looking really good in terms of reserves. Next slide. Any questions on ASB? All right. Last but not least, Transportation Vehicle Fund. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you. So our focus, again, purpose of the Transportation Vehicle Fund is to purchase and maintenance of yellow school buses. And as we can see here, revenues about 92% actual to budget, 84% actual budget on the expenditure side. And if we really drill down on the details, the difference is we did not receive one bus this year. So we ordered 5 buses for the 24-25 school year. We got 4 of them, and the final one was delayed until the 25-26 school year. So that accounts for the difference on the expenditure side. And because we didn't receive that bus in August, we didn't receive the corresponding depreciation reimbursement revenue. So that accounts under the state special purpose for revenues. So that minor difference there. So if we had received the bus, all the buses, we'd be pretty close to 100% budget to actual on both sides. Next slide, please. So again, how did we finish? Off projections were off by about $43,000. Again, we have strong fund balance reserves in the Transportation Vehicle Fund. Variances on total revenues, again, that difference there of $35,000 is state depreciation reimbursement, and total expenditure difference is due to just the delay in receiving the bus until September. Next slide. So conclusions. So a lot of kind of the main points jumping out here, year-end projections. So overall, we're starting the year near our year-end projections. Again, the exception was due to the general fund. We had to transfer the funds over for the HVAC and the roof during the summer for the high school. That was kind of our summer surprise. And then the fund balance, better than budget, but fund balance has decreased by $1.9 million, and will primarily draw down on the committed fund balance, which, based on board resolution, is used to offset future budget reductions. So we're following the resolution and focusing on drawing down that balance first. We have about $200,000 to start the school year with in that committed fund balance for that specific purpose. We can see also our reserves show the feasibility of increasing the minimum fund balance reserves to 5 to 6% of annual budgeted expenditures as well. And then the other thing, big takeaway from the 24-25 year end, again, capital projects is high priority, and as we can see, it can catch us off guard even right at the beginning of the school year, and so this remains a high priority for the district. We also saw the decrease in investment interest income, so we can't just rely on interest being generated from our fund balance reserves to cover these expenses. So again, our transfers from the general fund remain the primary means of addressing maintenance issues. Next slide. All right. Any questions?
Thank you, Sean, for the main event, as always.
I don't know, I think Trevor nudged me out this time. Yeah. All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, Sean, thank you. It's really hard to quantify the amount of time and energy that our entire finance and budget team puts into each year's budget and the work, but they do a magnificent job, and Sean, thank you for representing all that hard work so well. Appreciate it. Okay, what are we moving into some policies next?
First read.
let's jump into some policies. We have 6 policies on our first read for this evening. The first one is one of my favorite topics, 1630, evaluation of the superintendent. This policy simply outlines the board's duty and ability to evaluate the superintendent. It outlines it outlines and is now aligned to the Washington State standards in the 8 areas the superintendent should be evaluated on by the board. As far as the policy committee, we moved this forward. The policy committee asked that I make sure that the evidence and artifacts that I share with the board for my evaluation are aligned to this policy, and we've done that. So yeah, Maria, any other thoughts or comments? Okay. Questions from the board? 5 to go. 3425, accommodating students with adrenal insufficiencies. So this is a new policy addressing adrenal insufficiency. I like to say that as much as I can. In students while under the care of the school district. The district collaborated with our nursing team on this policy before it got to our policy committee, so that was great to have that information behind us. We moved it forward with a brief conversation around age of consent, just being 13 years old, and how that could impact a student and their family at some point. Also, we had a conversation, what is adrenal insufficiency, and that it impacts hormone production such as cortisol and leaves the student feeling fatigued with low blood pressure and darkening of the skin, just if anyone else wanted to know that. So yeah, we just moved that forward. Any questions for? Okay, excellent. Let's see, 1820, board self-assessment. Non-substantive changes here really outlines when the board will go through a self-assessment process. We changed the annual part to read every other year at minimum or annually, so we kind of have that option. We were thinking that we're going to have every other year for our board begin in 2026, and that is intentionally to fall on years when we bring new board members on to our board to give 5 or 6 months of our time together and then assess together how we want to do that. Maureen, anything else? Questions? Moving group. 1821, standards for individual school directors. This is a new policy that outlines and describes the 6 standards that each board member would need to reflectively review each year to ensure reaching those standards. The policy seemed quite reasonable for the policy committee. We liked it. We actually really enjoyed the bulletin format, which we don't see a lot in our policies, and we moved that forward. Okay, reasonable. I like it. 1005, key functions of the board. Policy outlines the research-based Washington State Board standards. The school board is responsible for school district governance, we know. We did massage this one a little bit there. We changed the final bullet under engagement, which you have, and you can see redlined, in the community and education section to read, taking into consideration via the superintendent input from the staff. And we redlined through the word solicitation. We felt like it didn't read well. And so we liked the concept, but we just changed the wording there. We value the input of staff through the work of the superintendent was how we wanted that to read and be phrased. Did I capture that correctly, Maria?
You're doing great.
Okay, just trying to give it, okay. One more, 1210, annual organization meeting. Really didn't change much. There was some non-substantive changes, some grammatical changes to this annual meeting description, and we just moved forward. All right. Nicely done. And we're going to move into some action here, folks. So I'll let President Jackson take it from here.
All right. We have a second read of policy 1815, which we talked about last meeting. Do I have a motion to approve 1815? My script is all screwed up. Do I have a motion to approve the second read of this policy?
I move to approve policy 1815.
Second.
All right, it has been moved by Maria and seconded by Mark. Any discussion? Nope. Okay. All in opposed? Nope. Okay, motion carries. 2. All right, so approval of the bond proposal at the Long Range Facility Committee and the date of the bond election. So I think we'll have a little discussion for this one, but do I have a motion to approve this proposal, the bond proposal? It's real quiet all of a sudden. Did I just do something wrong, or are we confused about?
The date.
I thought we'd do that, the date during the discussion.
Okay.
And then we can approve it after that, just
Okay.
because I think we'll have to talk through a little bit what that is.
Yeah, this is a tough, it's presented to you in a challenging format.
Okay.
So apologies.
Yeah, in order for discussion, I move to approve the bond proposal by the Long Range Facility Committee and select a date for the bond election, if appropriate, during discussion.
Sounds great. All right, we're doing the heavy lifting. Mark seconding. So now let's do some discussion. So if you guys go back to page 1 of Trevor's thing, you see the different election dates. And we the ones in yellow, we talked about November 3rd, 2026, and then February 9th, 2027, as kind of the real, I think, sweet spot for where we're looking. And again, we're not talking about this as we're setting a date, and this is a final date for sure. This is how do we give the district and the bond planning committee enough kind of a planning window or to work back from. So you're looking at resolution filing date has to happen by August 4th, 2026. So if we're looking at that, then you can kind of extrapolate where you need to be doing your fundraising, when you're doing websites up, et cetera, et cetera. Versus if you went February 9th, December 11th becomes your new important date. So personally, I was leaning toward November just because you can always push back. It's really hard to move things forward. And I think that you're allowed to run a bond twice in a calendar year. So if we do it in 2026 and it fails, we still have 2 options in 2027.
Run it twice in a calendar year?
In a calendar year.
Then that would take us to the following calendar.
No, if we do it November 2026,
Uh-huh.
then you can do it twice in 2027.
Oh, got it.
So I think in terms of flexibility, setting ourselves up with kind of the sped up timeline, which I think is reasonable, as opposed to saying, let's try August. Well, August was also a terrible month for passing bonds, but I feel like for me, November seems like the right entry into this kind of bond planning scenario.
So to that point, there's obviously a financial impact to run 2 bonds so 2026, 2027. That's my concern with that. But I am also in support, as of the short discussion right now, to run it November of 26. My biggest concern is the validation process. We're looking at smaller, so we need 40% voter turnout in order to validate the election with 60% majority. And I think our chances are higher if we go for November.
Seconded.
I can add some general thoughts then to the discussion. I think that factors that we are talking about is an early vote would result in reduced inflation and be economically efficient. That's the one factor. I think when I look at the Facilities Commission's work and proposal, I feel very different than I did 2 or 3 years ago about the strong planning that's going into the project. And I think that both dates give enough time for that planning to be brought to fruition. But I think that's a factor for being willing to go ahead promptly. If you look back at the history even of Wenatchee's bonds, renewed effort is part of the theme. So the comment on you get another try in 2027, I don't want to be depressed about it, but I think getting the word out early with a strong, well-planned message is the right way to go. Even if you then have to go back and regroup and do it again. That's been the history, and I think rather than wait longer, I think that would be a slightly stronger way to go about it. And then I notice in the analysis we've been given, there's a lot of uncertain political risk about what happens in Olympia, state, and other national climate. What we've been told is that this is a tentative decision. We would recommend a particular date. It is correctable if we find that we're looking at situations that change the voting playing field. So putting all those together, I think the structural factors are in favor of doing it as early as we think is prudent. And I hesitate a little bit because I'm not going to be on the board when you go into this, but, so I don't want to say, hey, do that. But I think that going for the strengths and the messaging with the belief that there's time and strong planning, and then being flexible to handle any adversity, that seems to be a good position to be in.
I think that I'm hoping that our facilities speak for itself. I'm also confident that we're always going to catch our voting base by surprise that we're doing something. So I think if we have a strong plan laid out with a good communication strategy, we could hit November. I am using page 2, though, see that we typically have over the whole state better turnout for February, so, but going with the shooting early, we could always move back if we need to. It sounds like a prudent plan.
And just, a reminder to the public, we are going to see significantly more information about the bond. We're not making a final decision on the bond. That won't happen until, if we select November 3rd, till August. So this is not, we're finalizing what the bond is. We're putting this on this kind of day on the books, a little bit in a pencil, but this is a planning horizon for everyone. So did I feel like November 3rd is what we all wanted to put in for the approval?
And we'll just add that Julie also shared with, or the Director Norton also shared with Tucker and I that she supported a November 2026 as well.
I want to add to this, to just my comment, because it is a little tricky. We are voting on 2 different things. One is to actually run a bond and then a date. The proposal, I want to state my position on the bond, that I feel strongly that we should run it. The Long Range Facility Committee did extensive work. They did a lot of work and I think it really shocked our members of the community who have not experienced or have only experienced, say, our athletic facilities. And like our citizen comments, we have a student's perspective, we have a parent's perspective, and the parent's perspective is someone who has young children in the district who are not at the high school or at the middle school level. As a parent of a student who will not benefit from, a potential pass, I value education, that I feel we need to, in order for us to have, generate lifelong learners and productive citizens, we owe this to our kids, whether there are children that are going to benefit or our neighbors' children. So I applaud the Facilities Committee for their thorough work, It's not gonna be easy, but I think we have a very invested group, and I hope Martin comes back to work on the committee. No pressure. Tina. But anyways, yeah, I'll just stop there, but thank you for the long range facilities committee for the work they did. And for that reason, based on their work, I can support moving the bond forward.
Thanks, Brenda. I think that was a good summation of what needed to be said, so thank you for saying it. Because you're right, we were also deciding whether we did the bond. And as someone who's on the facility committee, I didn't want to say it myself. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve running a bond with a tentative time?
You already have a motion.
Oh, okay. So
Just confirm the date.
great. So the date was now November 3rd, 2026. That's the date we're selecting. Great. So those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Julie would also like to add an aye, although we still are there, and none opposed, so motion carries. All right, nice work, everyone. Superintendent report.
Excellent, excellent. Just want to give a shout out to the Chelan Douglas Land Trust and the Wenatchee River Institute for the 2-day training Beyond Land Acknowledgements that I was able to attend last week with lots of other local community leaders and learning about the robust culture of our local indigenous tribes, also the struggles with land and fishing rights. It was a valuable 2-day training for me, and I got to work with some community leaders that I don't get to see all the time, so that was fantastic. But also had, every year we work with Lisa Bradshaw from the Don't Wait Project and Mr. Mike from Unmake a Bully. And we had the premieres of the public service announcements last week at the Performing Arts Center. So Casper School District was there, Eniat School District was there, and then we had 3 schools also there showing our public service announcements. So Washington Elementary, Orchard Middle School, and Valley Academy were all represented, and it was a great evening, solidifying our resolve that we're not going to tolerate bullies, and so it was great. Postseason sports are happening, and they are amazing. Cross country at state, girls swim and dive at districts, girls soccer playing as we speak. Do we have an update on any of that stuff? Okay. And then girls volleyball is cleaning house once again this year as well. So lots of amazing things happening. And then tomorrow night, I'm excited. My family and I are going to go to the opening night of Little Shop of Horrors, and tickets are still available for all of you who will go next week. All right, thank you. That's it.
Someone want to text Julie for a live update? Our correspondent at the game.
Correspondence on site, yeah.
Yes. We know what's going to happen when we get to Martin. So Mark, I'm going to let you go first. We're just going to work our way over that way.
So going back, because it's been a while since I talked, I attended the ASL classes at Haunted House at high school, which was super fun. All of the kids designed it all, minus the fact that you had to crawl in under a desk, and I was like, and I'm not as young as I used to be to get in, but we had a good time. Attended the Veterans Day Parade at Boulder High School, and the combined bands from the middle schools playing, which was great. And not stealing my thunder, just reiterating that Little Shop of Horrors does open tomorrow, so I hope you all have your tickets. We are in the late night drama of rehearsals right now, so I've already gotten 3 messages on everything my daughter needs me to bring her after this.
We better wrap up soon. Yep. Rhea.
I don't have many updates. I just want to provide some, actually I'll share a funny story back with you guys. So about 6, 7 years ago, oh no, they lost. Played hard, but just couldn't find the net. So that's Julie's report.
We should have saved that. To the end.
No, funny story.
Funny story.
So Martin reached out because we got together to look for a potential candidate to be appointed, to recommend to applied to be appointed for the school board. So him and I met over coffee at the little Automocha they had on 5th Street. And the funny story is that I was there to provide, we were going to come up with names, and I ended up in the seat. Not sure how that happened, but I really appreciate Martin's work on the board. He has, sorry, Carolina, yeah, you have some big shoes to fill, and I don't think any of us will. It'll take a long time before we even get another Martin. That's his time and dedication. He is an example of what a board member should, time you invested. In regards for me, he served as a mentor. Yes, we did go through a lot, and he was a sounding board for me. I'd be calling him at 9:30 after a board meeting. Oh my gosh, how did I do? Did I say? Was I too strong? And so to this day, I feel like I can call Martin or text, and he can either cool me down or hype me up. So on a personal level, I'm really, really gonna miss you. Our community is blessed to have individuals like you that invest in our educational communities, and you might not see the returns immediately. That's just generally in education, but you've made an impact on a lot of children, including myself.
You can't escape it. Okay. Caroline, the way you diligently attend meetings to learn inspires confidence. I wish you well. After the elections are certified, you'll be the at-large board member. Eyes, ears, mouth, heart, and brain will all be needed to represent the whole community. Welcome. I served 3 superintendents. Paul Gordon initiated some forward and outward-looking changes of long-term value. But what I most remember is his lesson for boards in conflict, always to start by presuming good intentions. And then I say Bill, he's not here, but Michelle was earlier, and behind you, the North Central Education Services District. Thanks for stepping up in a crisis to offer interim leadership. You brought a healing togetherness to the district with a calm and practical way to face challenges, a culture that lives on and strengthens us today. And Corey, my 2 overtime years have been worth every minute. That's okay. I admire the way you folded administration and general management into your skill set. I enjoyed living in the collaborative environment that you cultivate. But I add that this is a shared team achievement made possible by colleagues on the best board. School districts are like roses. Thorns come with the perfume. Not everything is fun. I give tribute to Laura Jakes for agreeing to be our board leader during the pandemic. I was fortunate during the uncertainty of the Find a Superintendent year to divide the presidency with Maria. And Julian Tucker, you delivered your share and more. We just reviewed the policy on board functions, and I have a very simple description. A board member's job is to encourage the organization to perform better in any way possible. Maybe like being a non-executive coach. In a healthy organization, ideas travel bottom up and top down, and everyone is precious. And I want to end where I started in 2019. No investment is more important for our community than K-12 education. And you, all parts of the Wenatchee School District, have much to do. And thank you for your past and future efforts. And to the adults of Wenatchee, if we wish to live in a community that thrives economically, socially, culturally, and personally, think hard and deep when we vote on resources to nurture education and healthy living. It was interesting listening to the middle school music program for our young people. And I'm done.
Wow.
Thank you, Martin. I'll say my stuff about you at the end. I also got to see the middle school and the high school band at the parade when they did a great job despite some cold weather. And middle school we challenged them to play a different song. They had only learned one song, and they played it the whole parade. So that was what they had that moment. They're like, no, there's one. We got one song. But they did a great job with it. I will also say that the board received a message from a community member saying what great Foothills, what a great Veterans Day assembly Foothills put on. I know that across the district other assemblies were put together, so thank you for the staff and students for putting those together. I know I went to a choir presentation today where we had a child that fainted and a child that puked during the assembly. And the teachers stepped in, took care of the kids. It was never a thing. They did not stop singing during either of those events. So this is, there's excitement at the things, but also I want to appreciate the staff because it's not just organizing and putting together, it's also taking care of the fainters and the pukers.
Crowd management.
Yes, for sure. And also thank you to all our veterans because I think it was great to see the whole community step up. And I would like to end with a fond farewell to Martin. Maria used the word mentor, and I think that was exactly how I would say what you've done for me as a new board member. And I really appreciated your insight from the day you interviewed me to see if you needed to run against me, on to here's some final thoughts for I'm hoping that we can continue forward with the momentum you created. So thank you so much for your energy, the hard work you put into it, and hopefully we can do your legacy some honor. And also if you ever want to come back as a celebrity correspondent to tell us what's going on in the community, you are always welcome. We look forward to seeing you again in some capacity.
I feel like
All right.
Bright Spots is going to turn into just Martin's.
Martin's back!
Great.
You can even just do a travel log of Europe. That can be your bright spot. Anyway, well, and that is it. So, meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming.